Welcome into another week of Every Day We're Covering. CP and SJ with you here to talk the wide world of sports. A lot of college football and wagering here for you. Have some fun along the way. We're glad you're with us here for another week, another exciting weekend of college football for sure. On the picks front, definitely on my side, I did not hold up any end of the bargain, but hey, you have some rough weeks. You have some really good weeks. Hopefully, I'm going to follow this up with a 5-0 week because it went 0 in the W column for me. SJ was able to get some wins though, so we're not a total wash here for you for the weekend, and just some games that kind of didn't go the way that we quite expected them to, and that's the way it falls sometimes.
Well, it's like how you want to be as part of a team. If one guy's down, the other guy's got to pick him up, or however many you got. So I mean, sure, there'll be a week where you will bail my ass out too. So that's that's why we got two of us here to double the odds there. But yeah, it was decent. Maybe a little step back. I probably went a little bit of reach on one or two. We'll talk about here in a minute. But all in all, not a bad weekend, and I guess some pretty decent games. I guess depending on what team you're rooting for.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting results, no doubt, here to talk about, as there always is, but it just seemed like another fine, wild weekend here, and especially for some of the big games that happened that a lot of people had eyes on. So we'll talk all about that, and of course, and we'll recap all of our picks, and we'll look ahead here. We've got a couple of other topics we're going to throw in there too, and then we'll look ahead to next week and the big games that are coming up here around the corner for you as well. As we get rocking and rolling here on the program, excuse my voice as well, because I probably left a little bit of it in Ames last night. A little wild affair. It took a little extra yelling to get the W's, so that's why I'm hoarse. But I'm celebrating here with a beverage, as we always do. And I sent you a pic of this here last week when I found this stuff, because I thought this would be right up your alley. And it's really, I'm really pretty impressed with this whole pack. It's a variety pack of what they call session sours. So supposed to be, I think, a little bit more drinkable, so to speak, on the kind of sours front. But it's Revolution Brewing Company. So I've had some of their stuff here before, but never had any of their sours. And they've got all kinds of, in there. They kind of break it down off of the whole revolution theme, So this one's called Freedom of Speech. And the speech is spelled with peach, because that's what's going on here. A peach session sour. And very good. The other ones have like a currant. There was a blueberry ginger. And then there's a strawberry rhubarb in the pack as well. I would highly recommend. They're all very good. I like this one. Lots of good stuff. I'm sure be right up your alley, SJ. What are you drinking this week?
Yeah, me, anything sour, especially in the drink form, I'm down with that. I think I'm going back to my buddies down in Martin City. They make some good beers, and this actually, we're changing roles here. This might be right up your alley. The Fall Back, it's an American brown ale that they make
Nice.
down there. So kind of just like your fall type of beer, I guess. A little heavier, like not too bad, but with a little over 5%, 5.5% about, but just kind of like your, I guess maybe your standard, even like an Oktoberfest style or something like that, just like a little heavier lager, but real good. And I don't know, just kind of like one of those drinks along with the sours, like anything, a brown ale or a freaking anything like, German style, like sign me up, I'm in.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I would definitely be up my alley. Yeah, good stuff. So that's what we're sipping on. Hopefully, you've got a fine beverage here listening to the program. And as always, if you have some recommendations or you find something new that you think that we need to try, let us know. Hit us up. We would be happy to do that if we can, of course. Try to track it down. Let's get into the picks here for this past week, and I guess I'm kind of one of those guys, lay the bad news on me. So I'm just going to get the bad news out of the way here with my picks here from this weekend. I was let down by a lot of teams, obviously, but one of them that really surprised me was Tulane. I just thought they would roll. I mean, they were 22-point favorites. They ended up winning the game, but it's only by 14 over Rice. Rice has just been pretty miserable this year. I don't know if it's one of those you just take your foot off the gas type of things. You're not all super motivated, but it didn't work out. Green Wave let me down. Next one I'm not so surprised about, and I suppose the game that was interesting for a lot of folks, how these teams would respond. Bama and Tennessee. I just thought it set up well for Alabama the way that the schedule went. And they were due for kind of a good game, but they started okay. And then just didn't finish well. And Tennessee gets it done again against them. 24-17 ends up being the final. Tennessee wins it. So now Bama all of a sudden looking like they're in big trouble there in the SEC, which you normally don't think is a problem. But yeah, I don't know. They're just kind of struggling along. They can't seem to put 4 quarters together.
Yeah, I was in a busy window, so wasn't watching, every play. Got keeping, one eye on this one and one eye on the other. But I was a little surprised, kind of get to see the end. You're like, what happened there? You go back and watch and just I don't know what it was. I can't, for me at least, I didn't pinpoint one specific play or anything like that. It just, I don't know, it just didn't come together. I don't know if they thought they were like, we're going to turn on here at the end,
Mm-hmm.
or just, figured we're going to, we're Alabama. We always beat Tennessee. But I like I said it, I think last week or maybe in the week before. It's been, one of the last few pods we've had at least, that with just every team, not just Alabama, but we talked about how, like, with the conference changing, different, so many more teams, so many more schedules. You can throw in the travel if you want, whatever. But those kind of the helmet effect, or just being, we're this team, we're that team, coming to your town, or you come into our place. Like, it's not that intimidation factor isn't what it used to be. And I'm not
No.
saying they thought they were going to win, but that does, I think, factor into it, where it's like, I mean, of course, these are common opponents. It's not like it's an upset.
Yeah.
But a few years ago, if Tennessee beat Alabama, it'd be like, I mean, literally, we'd still probably be, seeing the highlight shows, talking about showing it, but it's like, oh, they beat them, okay, next week, because the team, losing is not the shock that it was before, and
Mm-hmm.
doesn't diminish what the games mean, and it still matters. Of course, you don't want to lose. You still want to lose as the least amount of times as possible, but it's still just not the. It's not the, like, catastrophic, because they can still make a run and get back in there. It's not going to be easy, but it's not impossible now. But even myself, I'm just not as shocked when you see, like, you're like, oh man, kind of catches your eye, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not like, oh my, before you'd be kind of like, man, you'd really be kind of stunned here and surprised by this news, but you're like, oh, I thought they could maybe win. So it's just the playing field's way more level, and I'm not, again, I think it's a good thing. But it's, I mean, obviously it's not good for our picks, when when there's this much parity. It's like, well, I mean, that term favorite isn't kind of what it used to be. It's not the same. Doesn't have the same. There's not like, oh, this is a easy pick here. I don't think, not that they ever existed, but now even more so. It's like, well, someone might have played there and transferred and has an axe to grind or something to that effect, or used to play for this coach and doesn't anymore and doesn't like him, so kind of ramps it up that much more. There's a lot more, I guess, kind of under the radar type of storylines that exist than just teams that have played for 50 years in a row. Like,
Yeah.
there's more to it than just that.
Yeah, that's very true. I think even more so, like you said, now than ever, it's harder and harder week to week just to pick winners. And then here
Mm-hmm.
we are trying to, say they're going to win by this many points too.
Right.
So yeah, it is interesting, and yeah, certainly can go the wrong way a lot of times. And that was one of those games. Another one I was really disappointed by. I don't know, not necessarily, I guess, because I think they're like this phenomenal team, but I just thought this was a spot again where they would do fine. James Madison, a team that some weeks has put up a gazillion points. Here they go and they drop only 14 on Georgia Southern. I mean, you can score 70 on North Carolina, but you can only score 14 on Georgia Southern. Okay, it doesn't make any sense to me. But they lose. They lose the game. And not only did they not cover the 9.5 they needed to, they lose by 14 points. So that one was a head scratcher to me. The next one, I probably shouldn't have been as confident about this in retrospect. Just kind of as I looked at it again and kind of went through the schedule, and I think it's maybe shown me some more about some of the other teams that were on the schedule for Texas Tech. But they laid an egg. They were rocking and rolling right in the thick of the Big 12 race, really. And then Baylor comes in and just lays a thumping on them for some reason. 59-35 ended up being the final. Baylor wins it. So, I thought at least, if nothing else, it would be a Tech win, but they maybe wouldn't win by a whole lot, perhaps. But, yeah, they just got run out of their place. And they look like not necessarily the contender in the conference that I thought they were. Not that they could still not play good games, but, yeah, a bad week for them, and they're certainly capable of that, too. And then Colorado, Arizona, I just thought that would be a track meet type of game, and Arizona didn't live up to their end of it. Colorado did their part, but Arizona did not. Ended up being 34-7 Buffs, which I did say on the pod that I wouldn't be surprised that the Colorado wins, because I kind of thought they would at this point. But I also thought Arizona would be able to score some points, because Colorado's defense is not exactly a juggernaut. But didn't go that way. So as a wash type weekend here for me. I was not not doing too well. And I think that's the other interesting thing too when you get into, and we've talked about this, but you get into these matchups here in these conference games where maybe they're not the familiar conference games anymore, and but then just because the teams are so different, it's not necessarily because the teams haven't played and met each other before, because both those games the teams had in other conference for one of them, and then big history between Tech and Baylor, but the teams are so different from what they were a year ago. That makes it even more difficult to kind of pinpoint sometimes too.
Yeah, that was kind of add to the conversation here is obviously the extra storylines we talked about, but also with the amount of people transferring, that consistency is going to be that much hard to find. It's tough enough when you have players you've played with for 2 or 3 years, but let alone someone that you maybe you've known for 2 or 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to be consistent with that, and just coaches change, schemes change. When we look, Oklahoma fires their offensive coordinator here, so what are they going to do next week? And you won't be the first one or the last one to go here during the season. So that maybe that's maybe zero in on that and just look at that. That might be more of an issue that we're going to see going forward. Is just being consistent is going to be that much more difficult when there's so many more moving parts than there ever used to be. And I mean that's the nature of the game. I don't. You just got to adjust to it. We can't all be, crybabies and retire, a month or two before the season. We might touch on that later. But you just, I mean, it's just the nature of the beast, and you got to figure it out and get better, or you're going to get to the back of the line and someone's going to get in front of you.
Yeah. Another disappointing game in the Big 12, we go ahead and get out of the way, too, because I was kind of in agreement with you that I thought that Houston would at least make it interesting against Kansas, and that was not the case. KU ran away with the game 42-14, finally put together a game, for them, because they've not looked good, I mean, almost any game that they've played so far this year. So that was kind of a big one for them, and I think it's maybe at that point in the season, though, here, too, for Houston, where maybe one thing went wrong in that game, and then came the head down scenario. And I think their season is just on utter free fall at this point.
Yeah, this is kind of a pick who's gonna fall off the cliff, I guess, type of game. So maybe Kansas will hang afloat for a couple more weeks more than Houston. They're probably done dealing. So that was obviously I didn't pick them to win, so I didn't think
Yeah.
that was probably likely. But like you said, I thought they could at least stay within 5 or 6 points, or maybe even closer than that. So that wasn't a that was probably the one that not surprised me the most, but it was just the biggest like kind of head scratcher a little bit, just because it's not like they if this had been the second or third week of the season, I might not have been as surprised if Kansas was coming in like 1-1 or one and
Hmm.
two even. But the fact that they hadn't won since August, that was like, maybe Houston maybe overperformed or kind of maxed out there when those last couple of wins they had over this last month, and this is more who they probably are.
Hmm. Another team that did kind of let down as far as being able to put up points in the game. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that necessarily, but just the winning margin.
Mm-hmm.
A&M, you had them at 17 and a half against Mississippi State, who Mississippi State has obviously just had an awful, awful season.
Yeah, I don't know if they
Yeah.
beat Houston.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
But apparently they can hang with A&M, so there you go.
Yeah, 10-point game. That's what it ended up being. So that was disappointing as well. Especially again trends like A&M. It looked like they'd finally figured it out. They're rocking and rolling. They put the hammer down on Mizzou a couple weeks ago, and now you don't do it against what we both think is probably a much lesser team. That's the week to week of college football.
Well, I mean, I figure you put up early 28 points or something, you maybe get a couple of touchdowns late, and you win like a 42-10 or something.
Hmm.
That's kind of the way I saw it playing out, and I don't maybe just figured we got it in the bag. Let's just go out there and take it easy and get put the W in their pocket, because that's all they're concerned about. Obviously, they don't care. I mean, who knows? We might hear a scandal coming out here later this year from one team, so somebody might have cared about the spread. Maybe they bet to not cover the spread.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, it was kind of one of those just like just show up and get the W, move on to next week. Which I guess that's all you have to do. But
Hmm.
still, the style points I think will factor in margin of victory, that type of thing when it comes to deciding these playoff teams and that thing. So I do think that's something that still needs to be considered by not saying that that's the most important thing, but I think it when you get to picking 12 teams, there's going to be some splitting of hairs when at the end of it here, and this could be a game to look back. I'm like, only a 10-point win against Mississippi State. maybe it could be a deciding factor. I mean, might not be, but it might.
Yeah, that's true. Good thing to think about. On a more positive note, as far as picking up some wins, SJ was able to do that for us. Miami laying 5, just got it done against Louisville, 52-45 final. So the Hurricanes get another win, and they seem to kind of be doing this. They're winning. They're winning by not huge margins, but in this case, they got enough there.
It's like a common thing to say, like, "Oh, you're sweating it out," but Miami literally does make you sweat games out. If you're betting on them, or if you're just a fan of the team, they've had some crazy finishes, and we kind of joked about when we made the picks that maybe this week will be a little easier, road to path to victory. That
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the case. Of course, another interesting, and for entertainment value, of course, that was a hell of a game. It was really exciting. A couple of times there, I was a little nervous. I didn't know if they were going to get it done there. But they end up covering that 5 with a touchdown victory. And I don't know. You look at the schedule, and their path looks pretty good here to the playoff. I know there's a couple tough ones left still, but there's no team that they're gonna face, at least on their schedule. Can't say that they're more tested when it comes to what do you want to call it, clutch plays or last minute victories. Not many teams in the country, and then definitely not in the ACC, can say that. We've done it more than Miami has, because you know like them or not, I mean, they've done what they need to do, and in some pretty high pressure situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're feeling much better about themselves than a lot of other teams in that state at this point of the
Yeah, oh,
season.
yeah.
I saw.
All the way up to the pro level and on down. So
Yeah, no kidding. Uh, I saw the meme this week that Florida State's going to protest to expand the playoff to 128 teams so that they can get in this year instead of like
that
last
still
year.
might be a little close call there, but yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I
no.
mean, it's just wild. Like, what was that? I mean, we said keep an eye on that game, of course. Not that it was like, oh, a great pick because Duke was the favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I mean, but it was one point they had consecutive plays with turnovers in a row, was NCAA record. I'm like, that's when you're just like, what do you do? You just
Yeah.
kind of throw it, especially as a fan. I mean, of course, the coaches and players, they can do something about it. There's obviously a lot of issues there, and probably some, quit and that type of thing, or just players just done with it, not wanting to play for this coach. But the pride's got to come in at some point. I know you probably want a change to be made, but I mean, you're the ones out there kind of getting embarrassed
Mm-hmm.
and being, the cameras are on you. As myself, if it was me, I'd be like, I mean, obviously, maybe you don't like this coach, but I was like, do we really want to keep getting, just getting the crap kicked out of us? You know what I mean? At
Yeah.
some point,
Yeah.
I know there might not be much you can do about it, because the teams are just better than you, and that
Mm-hmm.
that could be part of it too. But I don't know. A few of these losses, it's more of just kind of other things besides talent, to me at least.
Mm-hmm. Another team that did get it done, maybe made it a little hairy late too for you, but Michigan State. They were getting points, so it was never like it was like, oh, for sure this is testy, but they still needed to kind of do some things at the end of the game to secure the game and ultimately a win, as they do beat Iowa 32-20. Caleb Johnson ripped off another late huge run for Iowa to make it a little bit more interesting, and that's what he does. He's a great player. But yeah, I did feel like I said that to my cousin. I just like, this is one of those games for Iowa. I feel like it's kind of testy. You go to a place that you've had a history with close games with this team. They seem to be playing better recently, and they do find a way to get that one.
I don't think it's just because they wear the same colors, but I've put them in kind of the ilk of like a Missouri, or even a Kansas State, I guess, where it's like, if you're the underdog, watch out. But when you're kind of expected to, be the man, and be a, not necessarily easy victory, but you're the favorite,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you got to watch out and be careful, because it just seems like they can't. I mean, Iowa State, what were you guys trailing? At least
Yeah.
close to double digits. They're late
Mm-hmm.
and still ended up pulling it out. So that's like the kind of thing. That's what I was looking at to see. Is, I mean, they could still end up having a good season, 7-8 win season. I don't think they're that far. It's not like I think they're a bad team because of this game, but it just seemed like one of those that seems to come up and bite them, no matter whether it's a Minnesota, a Northwestern,
Mm-hmm.
even a Purdue. Like, it just seems like they used to have at least one or two of these games per year. That and now with the just the way the schedule is, and playing that many more teams, and it's just it seems like it's going to be even more frequent than it even has been in the past for them.
Yeah. Another one that you felt really good about, and rightfully so. The LSU Tigers come through big. I would guess I was surprised by the margin of this. 34-10, they beat Arkansas, and it's at Arkansas at night. Not necessarily an easy thing to go do.
That's someplace you don't want to be at night, especially on some of those roads.
Yeah, yeah. Don't take a wrong turn out of the
I mean, I
stadium.
know they're from Louisiana, but so maybe they feel comfortable. Both
That's
those.
true.
I'm not. Nope. If it
Yeah.
don't have a two digit number bigger than 70 on it, that road, I'm staying off it. So
Hmm. Yeah, but Tigers looked impressive. That's a big win for them. They certainly kind of kept themselves in the mix there a little bit in the SEC when we kind of maybe thought they were down and out the way the season started. So, big win for them. That was
I mean,
good.
look back at that USC
Oh, I
game, Mike.
know.
I mean, that's gonna haunt them. I mean, I know there was kind of like they were geared up for it, beginning of the season, and a lot of things have happened since now and then. But still, it's like, man, if those teams played now, like, can you imagine what that game would be like?
Hmm.
But that's not the way it works. You got
Yeah,
to play the team when you play the team. So,
yeah.
and who knows? Next week they may go down, and it's a kind of just a crapshoot when it comes to college football.
Hmm. You kind of just mentioned it a minute ago, so I was going to bring up the game. I guess partly because obviously I'm excited that my team is 7-0 and undefeated, but I just think it's a good also little bit of a talking point too, because it's interesting. Obviously a team like Iowa State, they're not used to being in this spot where they're the expected to win team. They were almost a 2 touchdown favorite coming into the contest against Central Florida, who, obviously Central Florida had not played that great moving coming into the game. But it's one of those spots where you're not used to also getting everybody's best shot, and now you're doing it. I'm sure they were amped up. I mean, this is a moment for them. Like, oh, they got nothing to lose. They're gonna go play, their butts off, and they do have good players. I mean, every team has good players. I was impressed. I think it was more so kind of a matchup thing too that caused some issues because the defensive front for UCF really played really well, and they got guys in there and got pressure a lot. Iowa State did lose a running back and a tight end as the game went along. That didn't help the cause either. But at the end of the day, it obviously for me as a fan was awesome to be there and see them come away with a victory when you don't play your best game, and that's what teams need to do to have great seasons. And they allowed a ton of rushing yards. Ended up with 2 virtually pick sixes in the game. One of them where the guy decided he wasn't going to carry the ball all the way to the end zone. But that's essentially what it amounted to at the end of the day. They got 14 points out of 2 interceptions for touchdowns. And then, could find a way that last drive. Morocco Beck ends up engineering a big, huge drive, gets into the end zone and scores. I thought something he said afterwards was interesting too, because they asked him, like, what was your mindset? What are you thinking going into that last drive? And he said, I just thought to myself, we've been in this tough spot before. He's like, earlier this season, Iowa City, we had to make a drive at the end of the game to try to get ourselves a chance to win, and we did it. And I think that's tougher to do than here at home with the fans behind us. So that was a good point. But I guess it just, to me, it's like, we're going to have a lot of these other teams that get a chance to have a turn to be really good with this parity. But do you figure out how to be that team in the moment when the expectations are on you? And it is obviously tough.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like sometimes it helps that if you don't know any better. I mean, I guess that's kind of like a thing people say a lot. Just kind of make the play when you have the opportunity. But that's easier said than done too, because no matter what anybody says, they're always like, "Oh, we don't, listen to this, hear that, read this, hear that." But then you bring it up in the post game. So yeah, I mean, it's you're gonna hear it. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
human nature to, like of course you're gonna be invested and interested in something that you put that much time and energy into. So yeah, but I mean, that is the trick of it. Like you said, is just, or that's I guess the skill to learn to have is just kind of being in that moment, not like shrinking or not being scared of that the pressure, and kind of like welcoming the opportunity to see how good you can be. And who knows, but yeah, next game's going to be the same thing too. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
makes it a little tricky, because like now, like I mean, not that I don't think it's at least a couple weeks back to them, but the secret's out now.
Mm-hmm.
No one's flying under the radar, no matter if it's Navy, Army, Iowa
Yeah.
State,
Yeah.
whoever. It's the whether they can beat them or not, but they definitely are going to get everyone's best shot, because talk about like a Houston, or the teams we're kind of dogging on. that'll make their season if they can knock off on a team like that.
Yeah. That's the difference too. You get later in the year, there's some teams that just they play differently when they're free and loose. I've seen it. We've all seen it a million times. So at the end of the year, when somebody knocks off somebody they're not supposed to, that old rivalry week that used to always be at the end of the year. We saw so much of that sometimes because those teams are like, well, hell, we haven't had a good season, but let's go make this a fun day, and
Well,
they often do.
and then things you can't control, like injuries, stuff like that, that people get hurt or bad weather. Maybe someone gets I mean, that's weird. You don't see it very often. I was going to say people get in trouble suspended, but no one gets in trouble in the season. Everyone's just a upstanding, amazing citizen these days.
Yeah.
Not saying I want people to get in trouble, but it's just funny because I just remember like growing up, you'd always see like, oh, they're suspended for the first half or they're going to miss this game. It's like, I don't know why that doesn't happen anymore. I guess maybe just everyone's really improved their behavior.
Yeah, nobody goes to the parties
Not
anymore.
being so crazy, yeah. But I mean, there are things you can't control. Whatever you want to, put into it, how just variables. So I mean, it's all just kind of kind of mixed together. Makes it that's the difficulty of it. But the teams that can figure it out, that's why they end up there. And I guess it'll be the playoff this year, Bulls, whatever you want to call it back then. But just that's how you get there. Is kind of just somehow finding a way to navigate all those things inside or outside of your control.
Yeah. The other thing I find so wild about games that come down to the end like that, it's like that phenomenon of momentum is just so bizarre because it's obviously like it takes one play and it's over. Like you can't there's no more margin for error sometimes. Like you have to make every play to win the game, and then they go down, find a way to get there, score, and then the defense comes up with a huge turnover to seal the game. Like, how does that just always carry over? It just seems like you get that snowball rolling, especially if you're playing at home. It always just seems to work out that way, and it's just such a weird thing to see sometimes.
Well, and the wild thing, and I think I said, we've talked about this before now, it's just because we watch so much of it, or if that's like kind of our main interest is college football, but how fast it happens and how you can kind of see it building. And it's almost like you're like, okay, he's gonna fumble, or they got a fumble recover. Okay, they're gonna do freaking flea flicker, play action, go deep, and they're gonna get a pass interference, or they're gonna get like you can kind of just see it building. Like, oh crap, they're screwed. Like you almost like it's almost like it's a scripted. I mean, I know I talk about the NFL having a script, maybe college has one too, but that's what to me is more wild. Is it's almost like you can see it coming, and it's like if we know that as just like an observer, a fan, whatever you want to call it, there's got to be some knowledge within in the people wearing the helmets and the coaches at the headsets that say, okay, this is coming, we got to avoid this. But it's still like it's almost like that. I don't know, you can't really put a label on it, but it's just like that. You can't stop. It's like that friggin' avalanche coming at you, and there's nothing you can do about it, but just watch and hope they mess up before you can mess up. I don't know.
Yeah, wild stuff. Obviously, lots of very impactful games here this weekend too. And you brought up people getting in trouble. Well, there were certain fans wearing burnt orange this weekend that got their ass in some trouble, and their team was in some trouble too, because it turned out that the kind of juggernaut that we thought Texas had suddenly built themselves into, maybe not necessarily the case, because Georgia came up and laid the hammer down on them and just looked like, the Georgia, I guess, that we expected to start the season. They jumped out to a big lead. They ended up winning the game 30-15 over Texas. So huge win for Georgia. Kind of knocks Texas back down a peg, obviously. And then, of course, there's a moment in the game specifically that we'll talk about. But I guess first off, just overall, SJ, your thoughts on, Georgia just kind of making Texas look small in that contest.
Yeah, that's kind of goes back to the week to week thing to me. It's and it sounds, I hate saying it seems as like kind of like a cop out when people just like the matchup though, the style of play, it didn't look good for Texas. They couldn't stop what Georgia was good at, and then Georgia was fine stopping what Texas was good at. There was a couple big plays here or there, of course, with that penalty that it kind of ensued that little, I guess, what do you want to call it, like little tantrum from the fans there. So I guess there was a play here or there, but even then, like, I mean, they got the benefit of the call, and they still didn't, lost by what double digits there. So I don't know that really. I mean, other than kind of giving a storyline and just showing how freaking big of assholes those people are. Other than that, like, it didn't really affect the game because Georgia was just a better team. I mean, that's honestly the way to kind of for me, the way I saw it is that
Mhm.
there was no way Texas. Maybe next week, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, but on that day, there's no way Texas was beating Georgia. They were locked in, and maybe they're just better than them the way they play,
Yeah.
not necessarily in the long term, but they were just a better team than them. That's the only thing. That's the only thing that really stood out to me. It wasn't like, oh, if Texas would have done this, they maybe had a chance.
No.
I didn't see anything from what I saw that it was going to change matters at all.
Mhm.
If anything, I was surprised that the final score ended up like being as close as it would, quote unquote. I thought it wasn't even within that 15-point margin.
Mhm.
That was that was pretty much just a beat down. They got lucky to get a kind of late score there to make it look respectable.
And that's the dangers, I think, of us as fans a lot of times getting caught up in that
Keep on
trans.
one week, it's like, oh, it's over.
Yeah.
They're the best team ever. Like,
Yep. Getting caught up in that transitive, look at games versus games when we need to look at how this matchup is going to play. Like what are they good at? What is this other team good at? Because at the end of the day, that's how the games are won. Like that's what the coaches are doing. They're trying to figure out what weakness can we exploit here. And yeah, it did definitely look like Georgia had that on lock against that squad.
well, I mean, think about it too. They're coming off a blowout win of their biggest rival, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, then Oklahoma backs that up with a embarrassing loss to South Carolina. So, but Texas is feeling great. Like, we're smoking everybody's. Bring them on. We got the next one up. They're having the time of their life, and just maybe the preparation isn't there like it needs to be. When you got a team like that coming in, and that no matter what you say, the back of your mind, Alabama took care of them. Like, well, they're at the same Georgia. I mean, obviously that's what somewhat there had to have been somewhat of a thought of that within on that Texas side, because otherwise
Mm-hmm.
they would have come out a little bit stronger than that. You would have thought at least. So yeah, it's I mean, gotta play 1 week at a time. It sounds stupid. And it's very I know it sounds stupid. It sounds like kind of like just what you would say, like
Yeah,
coach
coach
speak,
speak.
like
Yeah,
just a
cliche.
line, yeah. But
Yeah,
and honestly, we
it's
keep
true.
saying it, but it is true. Just like you don't know what's going to happen the next week, and they could come back, and Texas could smoke whoever's next on their schedule, and Georgia could lose next week.
Yeah.
So just it's a week to week deal, and just gotta have to keep looking at it like that. And I mean that's all there is to it. And even just with some of the teams that maybe we're on the wrong end of the stick this week. It's like you don't fold up the season. It's not over.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sucks to lose, yeah, but you got to move on and keep playing because who knows what's going to happen next week.
Yeah, and everybody has bad days, so
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that's part of it too. Um, Obviously, the one point in the game that's going to be a talking point this week is a penalty that was a penalty and then eventually was decided was not a penalty. And that was after the fans decided that they're going to litter the playing surface with all kinds of different objects. Steve Sarkisian had to go stand in the middle of the field and put his hands in the air to try to prompt the fans to stop throwing stuff. Just a bad look, obviously, overall. You never want to see a fan base of anybody doing that. Obviously, for a lot of us that don't have great feelings about the University of Texas to begin with,
Right.
that makes it even worse because look at these assholes again. Like they think they run the world. And yeah, just a terrible response from them. They did get fined this week for it, but whatever. I mean, there's got to be consequences too in the midst of games because that's the thing that scares me about that the most is like if we keep just seeing this, people are going to start to think that it's okay and it can happen week to week, and nobody wants that. Like we want the game to continue. You want to go have a good time at the end of the day. That's what it's about. And there's just really no place for that kind of reaction.
There's a lot that goes into it, but as far as we both are freaking sports fanatics, so that goes without saying, or we wouldn't do this, and we wouldn't be involved in the careers we've been involved in, or just doing jobs here and there, or whatever we've done since we've been in college. So we have nothing, as far as sports goes, we're all about it.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, sometimes like the fan behaviors is like downright embarrassing. Like there's no other way to like they feel and like there's like I said, there's a lot that goes into it when you think of like. I mean, people are paying, hundreds of dollars, which doesn't entitle you to anything. But at the same time, you're thinking that way because you're like, I bought my ticket. I
Mm-hmm.
spent $500 to get in here. I mean, act how you want. You're freaking getting liquored up or whatever you're doing, which, we're drinking too. That's fine. But, you gotta know your limit. You gotta know how to control yourself. At
Hmm.
the same time, like to me, I've always that was one thing that does keep me away from NFL, the NFL atmosphere. It's like there, it's almost, and I can't speak for every place, but the places I've been, it's like, are you going there to watch the game, or are you going there to like see how fast you can pass out? And to me, it seems like it's the latter more than the former. And if you're spending that much money, I want to remember the game. I want
Yeah.
to enjoy the experience. Like, of course, you're gonna have a couple beers here and there, have a good time, eat whatever, have some food, whatever. But like, this seems like the purpose of like the occasion is like lost. And
Hmm.
then, of course, when you're well, you mentioned certain fan bases, it kind of there's that I guess I said entitlement earlier. I'll go to that again aspect of it where it's just like feel like you always get the short end of the stick when in fact it's the opposite. Because
Hmm.
when has a call like that ever been changed?
Yeah. Never.
Like never, even no matter what level, what league, like that doesn't happen. And then I don't know what's kind of dirt these people have on people, how they keep just getting, how everyone's like scared of them. Like, what are they gonna do to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, obviously, I think it was a bad call, but how many bad calls do we just have to play through and
Yeah.
say, oh well, the ref messed up. Oh well, move on, get the next one. Like
Hmm.
that's the game. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's non-reviewable, it's non-reviewable. So
Yeah.
that's just the way it should play out. But yeah, it's I don't know, it's kind of puts a little bit of a damper on things. You don't like to talk about that stuff because then it's all you kind of act like you got to try to get on your soapbox, which we don't really want to do. But it,
No.
it
No.
is. I mean, it's noteworthy because of the fact that they changed the call. If they wouldn't have changed the call, we probably wouldn't even talked
Yeah.
about
No.
it. But the fact that they changed the call, that does set a little bit of a kind of a precedent there. We're like, well, then was another friggin' student section gonna go ape shit when the call doesn't go their way
Yeah.
in
And then
hopes
to
of
get
that
their
it gets,
way. Yeah.
with the it's probably gonna happen at some point.
Hmm. Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. You're setting a precedent here for like this is supposed to be something you can't change your mind about, and then they kind of danced around it by saying, well, we had this discussion, like, no, yeah, because it's not reviewable. They didn't review anything supposedly, but yeah, that amount of time goes by. Yeah, you don't just change it. Like that's not supposed to be a thing that happens. But I mean, I know we all want to get everything right that we can. That's fine, but it has to be the same for everybody in every scenario, and that's
I mean,
what
we
you're
don't
not
have
doing here.
6-hour football games, review every call.
Yeah, no
Then
shit.
kind of I don't even want to watch. Then it's like what's to watch then? It's
Hmm.
kind of that
Yeah.
kind of takes a little bit of the, I guess, I don't know what you want to call a little bit of the human error. I guess is in case can be a good thing. I mean, obviously, error is not a good thing, but it is part of it, and
Hmm.
you would hope that they're. I mean, at least I always gotta give them benefit of the doubt and hope they're doing the best they can do and
Hmm.
trying to get the call right. I mean,
Yeah.
if that's the case, you just kind of live with the way it goes.
Yeah, I saw a scenario like that in the high school game that I called on Friday night, and then it sucked, but it was what it was. You moved on, like that's what you do, and yeah, the game gets over in a couple hours, which everybody appreciates. Like we all love sports, but we don't want to be there that long either. Like there's
And
got
not
to
if
be,
it's to watch, replay. That's like
yeah,
I'm glad I'm always glad they, try to get everything right. But that little 2, 4, 5 minutes,
oh
however
god,
long it is, whether I'm just like if I'm at home, I'm leaving the room and I'll just come back and find out later. Like it's so annoying. I don't know, this is close. Like yeah, that's why they're reviewing it. It's close. Like it's like do the announcers think like they're gonna get in trouble if they say like disagree with the call? Because
yeah,
it does seem like that. Because
mm-hmm.
they won't be like, no, that's not a catcher. They'll just be like, everybody turns into Romo when it's a freaking replay. Like, can you just like have a backbone for once in your life and like
Yeah,
just you'll be fine. No one's gonna. If
mm-hmm.
anything, you might gain some fans
Yeah, yeah,
if
true
you
enough.
actually have an opinion and not scared to voice it. That would be nice for a change. I
Mm-hmm.
would welcome that big time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I the one thing I do wish I would hear a little bit more too, I think, is uh, people having a little bit more like respect of how it happened in the moment. Like at least yeah, everybody makes mistakes, but at least say, well, in real time, this would have been what I would have said. Like let's analyze this like you would see it because that's how they have to make the calls. So,
Especially when it's like a
yeah.
helmet to helmet or targeting type thing. That's going so fast. There's no way you
Hmm.
could have seen, but the angle of where
Yeah.
the helmets make contact and then they always talk about intention. Like the
Yeah.
guy that's making the tackle doesn't even know attention. He's just trying to get the guy to the ground.
Yeah.
Like whether maybe he did hit helmet to helmet and then he's out by the letter of the law, but I
Yeah.
mean, of course, maybe with the exception of that Saints team with the bounty gate, I
Yeah.
don't think there's many teams out there like actually like trying to like
Yeah. Take
literally
somebody
like
out.
injure people or like ruin their career. I don't think there's very many people.
Mhm.
I honestly don't think there's that many people doing that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I just don't see it.
Yeah, you're right. I'll say it myself. I've been guilty of that plenty of times in the stadium where like you immediately get pissed off about it, and you start yelling. It's like, yeah, I really should probably analyze this a little differently and take a step back for a
When it
second.
comes to like a late hit or something in sports, like that's different. Like someone's going out of bounds clearly and you can see it. But as far as that targeting, it's like there's so many. Someone slips or
Mhm.
just who knows whatever. There's so many variables to that, or someone freaking makes a move where you don't expect them to, and you end up hitting them at a different angle. Like
Yeah, they slow down.
there's
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. There's just like and I also don't think most defenders aren't trying to like they're just trying to get somebody to the ground, like I said. And so those are the ones that are kind of tough, and especially when it comes to replay, it's like, well, I mean, yeah, if you slow it down, you can see what made contact, but is that really like was that the impact or the was that the goal of the
Yeah, the
defender? And
intention.
usually,
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, not usually. Just a couple other scores to rip off here for you that were maybe interesting over the weekend. Not necessarily surprising, but I was surprised by the margin. K-State really dominated over West Virginia, 45-18 in that game. Another game that people might have been paying attention to just because they both were in the top 25. Illinois gets a win over Michigan, 21-7 the final there. Big win for Illinois. I mean, they've been kind of one of those teams where you week to week maybe don't always know what you're going to get. But yeah, they played pretty solid there. I was surprised that they were able to just kind of control and win that one. Other couple other scores too. Obviously, the Naval Academies continue to roll. Army 45-28 winners over East Carolina. Navy 51-17 over Charlotte. I will say I have had those guys kind of mixed in some of the fun weekly parlays almost always with my cousin because they've been so reliable in doing it. I know that's probably going to backfire at some point, but they continue to do that.
There you go. I like that backfire. Good one.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, Notre Dame or Navy's got Notre Dame this week, so
there you go.
stepping up the game a little bit. But I don't know. I like their chances right now. Early line is 13.5 for Notre Dame, so you might take a look at that one. I think they could maybe cover that and maybe do some more damage than even that.
Yeah. Yeah, and UNLV picked up another big win, 33-25 over Oregon State, and now they have a pretty big one coming up here this week. And we talked about this, a couple weeks ago. Pretty exciting game for a weekday matchup coming up on Friday night with Boise going to UNLV, playing there at Allegiant Stadium. That'll be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, I'll be zeroed in on that one, especially with our guy at running back. I don't know if you saw it. He threw on the garb too, the Michael Myers garb on his. I don't know if it's Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. I don't do much of that, but someone, reposted it on Twitter or something, and I was just like, oh man, there you go. I mean, that's how you. That's kind of got to sell yourself a little bit, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I appreciate that. Being able to kind of have that like sense of humor and being like a regular human being kind of makes me like you a little bit. And speaking of that, I don't know if you caught what's his Hunter's comments from
yeah.
Come on, man! Like
Dude.
you could. I mean, I've always. I mean, I think we've. Just with other topics, I've said my opinion on the matter of like to put yourself up. Don't always have to bring somebody else down.
Mm-hmm.
And like I get that you're a two-way player quote, but I don't know. Like I guess I need to look closer at the numbers. But to me, I don't know what he's doing at running back at Boise. I don't remember a running back doing that in quite some time. So I mean. Maybe he'll win it just because of a popularity contest, and Dion will get in people's pockets and try to rally the troops there. But as far as on the field, like there's nothing you can say that really diminishes what GT's done. Like he's kind of like a running back from like 10, 15, actually more like 20 years ago. He's definitely like a throwback of like a true running back where he's getting the ball in the backfield and he's doing a lot of the work himself and going 70, 80. When you don't even see 50 or 60-yard runs hardly ever.
No.
And what did he average? Almost 8 yards a carry against Oregon. I know they're not known for defense, but it's not like he's not doing it against top competition.
Yeah. And I mean, kids say stupid stuff all the time. I get that too, but like, and I'm sure he was caught up in the moment of whatever the hell he was talking on. I don't know what it was. I don't
Well, I
remember.
think
But,
it was his own podcast there,
oh,
so that
okay.
kind of shows you that. I mean, like, come on, like, I mean, everybody's gonna have their podcast,
Yeah,
right? But it's like, dude, like, you're, I don't know,
Jesus,
man.
how much shit of this do we need? But
Right.
as I sit here talking on a podcast,
Well, yeah, yeah. But well, at least we're, tax-paying adults,
exactly,
law-abiding citizens
yeah.
here. So
But yeah, to me, it's like, well, and the stupid thing to me about that comment was like, that's not even a that's not even like a proper comparison either. Like every
right.
wide receiver could say that ever. Yeah, they don't get as many touches as running backs because that's not how it works. Like you can't
Yeah.
catch 40 balls in a game. It ain't gonna happen, bro.
And
It's
if you
just
could compare, I guarantee if you could compare him, I mean, I guess we need the stats. I'm not gonna, say too much, but I would assume he gets more targets than most receivers across the country.
yeah.
I'm pretty confident in saying that. Like
Hmm.
whether he gets the catches and touches, that's your deal. But targets, I guarantee he's thrown to more than just about any receiver in the country.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. Again, it's too bad that he had to go that route too. Because I think the guy's awesome. I mean, he's an incredible
Yeah, there's nothing
player.
bad about his game. Yeah,
Yeah,
just like don't just talk about yourself and
exactly.
whatever. And I yeah, I mean probably like you said, caught up in the moment, but still, I was just kind of I don't there's to me there's not much you can say to take away from what
Yeah,
he's done in Boise. Like
no.
he's a hell of a player and probably one of the I don't even know if we've seen a running back like that in the last few years. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we always, I think, much more so appreciate when guys are, kind of game recognized game type of thing rather than, yeah, trash talking each other
yeah,
every
time
week.
yeah,
So,
I don't want the haters gonna hate type. Yeah,
but he's at Colorado, so what do we expect?
yeah.
Uh, other games coming up here this week. You already mentioned the Navy Notre Dame. That's going to be an early one here this next week. Um, other games that will
They've been
be
playing taps before that. That's what I want.
yeah, maybe I don't know. Oregon host Illinois here this weekend. That'll
That'd
be
be a
kind of
good one, yeah.
interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
especially when you think about the styles of play there, that's kind of about as opposite as you can get. So if
Hmm.
Illinois can kind of do what they did to Michigan, kind of impose their will, that'll be interesting to see. I mean, I don't see it, but we said
Yeah.
every week's its own week. So
Hmm. Alabama will try to get up off the mat. They'll be at home to take on Missouri. So kind of an intriguing type of matchup in that game as well. Who can perform at their top level? And then, I mean, look out! Texas goes to Vandy.
yeah, I just did just see that. I mean, I wouldn't expect them to lose, but being almost a 19-point favorite or 19, 18 and a half, depending where you look, that's rather large for a Vandy team that's kind of had their bullseye on some teams. I do know the quarterback, I think he either got hurt last week or is dealing with some injuries for Vanderbilt. So that will be we'll have to keep an eye on that if
Mm-hmm.
we even think about messing with that
Mm-hmm.
line or total or anything like that. But yeah, that could be dicey there. It's coming off that loss, so you don't know how your team's going to react.
Yeah. A couple other night games I think are worth mentioning. Penn State goes to Wisconsin. Interesting. We've kind of been waiting for Penn State to have that really, really hard test. And, obviously they've jumped up a little bit now in the rankings at number 3 here this week in the AP poll, and not necessarily an easy place to go win. And Wisconsin's been kind of that Jekyll and Hyde type team, so that could be a fun one.
Yeah,
Uh,
we talked about Iowa earlier. Wisconsin kind of been one of those teams that's had Penn State's number. It seems like when they've had a good year, they've pulled something out of their ass. So, and with a night game,
yeah.
plenty of cheese will be ingested before that one, so
Plenty,
they'll be ready to
yeah,
go.
plenty of cheese and barley pops, I'm sure, will be ingested there. The number 8 LSU Tigers will go to College Station to play A&M. That could be a fun one to watch in the evening as well. And then, of course, just for matchup's sake, Michigan State at Michigan, and then Kansas taking on K-State. Always fun when those teams get together, no matter how either any team is. But cool, fun rivalry. So
Depending on
fun to
your
watch.
cable provider here, SMU and Duke, you might want to watch out for that one. It's only on the ACC network though.
Oh
That
yeah.
might, or if no, I don't know. I might like Duke in that one. Just early thoughts there, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll dig into that. Who knows? That may not even be a play.
Yeah. So yeah, lots of fun stuff will be coming up here. We'll of course be giving you a little bit tidbits here and there too, maybe throughout the week because we do have games, all the way through the week. every night, so might throw some fun stuff out online for you. So make sure you're following on Twitter at SJMBets, at Cherokee CP. Those are the handles to be able to get a hold of us there for those games. And then, of course, we'll have our picks coming up for you here later this week as well. So keep it locked into the YouTube channel. Every day we're covering. Like, subscribe, get those notifications so you get those picks coming up later in the week. And then we'll throw up stuff on socials for you in that regard as well. One other topic before we wrap up. Interesting scenario that played out this week in Virginia as Tony Bennett called a quick press conference and decided that he's not going to be the coach at Virginia anymore in basketball. And a lot of his sentiment was kind of the regard that the game is ruined kind of thing. Like, I don't like this landscape anymore. I can't handle this NIL stuff. I don't want to be a part of it. So that's why he's stepping down. SJ, I know you have some thoughts on
that. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that could be I'm sure he's not alone in that thought, and it's probably especially with the older gentleman, if you will. I'm sure a lot of them feel the same way. But I think you had it kind of framed it best. Just thank you, appreciate, the time I had here at Virginia, kind of, moving on, time to do something different, and then just, live your life. But kind of have to go this route. And to me, the thing that is always, I don't know what you want to call it, funny, stupid, annoying, whatever and all of those, kind of fit to me. But how, the like I said, older generation, whatever you want to call it, is always like their main thing, at least to me, what I hear from them is their complaint with, kids they're coaching or people they're recruiting is the, how they're so, quote unquote soft and, not can't do all this stuff. And then to me, this is as soft as you can get. Like basically saying, I can't hang with, these, I can't adjust, I can't adapt. I don't know what to do here. So I'm quitting. And that's what I hear when he says that. So to me, you can't get any softer than that. So basically, kind of miss me with all that bullshit that these coaches are talking all the time, because they're just as soft, if these kids are soft, or softer than anything that they're gonna ever do. So that was kind of my take on it. Like I don't know, if you want to retire, and also the timing of it. Kind of messed up too, when you're basically screwing them out of this season. Like, what are they going to have there? Even if you have somebody that's an assistant take over, like, has he been recruiting? I doubt it, because it's so hard to recruit these days, and kids want this or kids want that, blah, blah, blah. So I'm guessing their roster isn't looking too good, and probably has more to do with the ass beatings you took in the tournament than it does with anything else. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, obviously almost as famous for their letdowns as they are for their successes here in recent years.
I was like freaking Pittsburgh, man. That's why I put Virginia in that class. Dude, they be the number 2 or 3 seed every time. It's like they ain't even make it to the Sweet 16 if they get out of the second week or the first weekend.
Yeah, I'm with you here. The thing that rubbed me the wrong way the most was the timing of the scenario. Like, you're just gonna up and quit on your guys. Like, to me, that's like, and that's one of the first comments I saw when I saw the story posted on a social site was, to me, this says, oh, I couldn't adapt, so I'm going to quit on my team 2.5 weeks before the season starts. Yeah, that's what it looks like to us. That may not be how you feel and the reasons why you're doing it, I guess. And I'm sure all coaches don't have that intention for their guys and their teams, but yeah, I mean, find a better way. If you thought this was coming, do it, before the summer starts. You mentioned that maybe he had a guy that he kind of wants to elevate and be moved into that spot. Well, fine, you can still advocate for that at a different time. It doesn't have to be now, so it just sucks. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's lots of other coaches that have found a way to change, and some of them, I've even said, like, that's what we have to do all the time. We just have to figure it out. Like, yeah, maybe it's not fun. It's not the easiest for us anymore in some scenarios, but at the end of the day, we're going to do it. And I think too that says a lot about, you, how successful can you be as a coach too? Because maybe you do have a way of getting around some of that by just being honest with kids. Tell them, if you come here, this is what it's mostly going to be like. And not everybody, I think, is willing to do that, and that's why it's so hard for some of them to get over this new system that's in place in this new era. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Obviously, with Virginia and with things, but yeah, tough to see that happen the way it did at the time it did. So we'll see it elsewhere around the country. I'm sure there'll be a few more of them along the way. So that was another topic we wanted to touch on here this week. We're going to wind things down. Again, be on the lookout later in the week for the socials. We'll have all the stuff up there for you online. So be locked in there to the Twitters. Again, at SJMBets, at Cherokee CP. Find us there. And then you can also, of course, follow us along with the podcast and share the podcast. We'd appreciate that. Available on all the major platforms, including at Spotify. SJ, hopefully we're going to be back on track here this week, rocking and rolling here with some good picks for folks.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time, and also decent UFC card this week, and like I told you, it's one I love out in the Saudis are footing the bill on this one, so it'll be a nice Saturday afternoon card. So I think 2 o'clock Central is when we're getting the main fights going, so that's always nice and mixed around a little football. Should be a hell of a Saturday.
All right, we'll get that worked in for you as well. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us again for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next time for some more covers.